Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome to the channel. My name is Romaniuk, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my journey of overcoming and healing binge eating, food addiction, and emotional eating. Make sure first though you are subscribed to the channel, hit the like button if this resonates for you. And like I always say in these videos, if this is something you're struggling with, you're not alone. It's not your fault. You don't have to be hard on yourself about it. And let's open up and actually normalize having these conversations so that we can fully eradicate and heal binge eating, food addiction, emotional eating, eating disorders from the planet. So also, if you are loving this conversation and you want to learn more about healing your relationship with food in your body, the link is below to subscribe to the No Sugarcoating podcast, which has over 550 episodes where I dive deep into everything I've talked about today, a lot more. So you'll love that. Great free resource. And of course, if you want to start building awareness around your emotional eating triggers, there's a free 90-minute masterclass replay that you can sign up for below, understanding your triggers and emotional eating. So, oh my goodness, where do we begin? Where I'm going to start from the beginning and highlight some key points of my healing journey and highlight some of the key things that fueled me to go into binge and emotional eating. So the first thing is, and I want you to pull out a journal because you can build awareness around what's been going on for you by starting to understand, where did this all start for me too, if you're struggling with it. And if you're not, but you know someone who is, share this video with them, please. So when I was 5, my first day on the bus, we had just moved out to the country and I was so excited to take the bus. And it's like, imagine me with a little mushroom cut, my big brown eyes. And I get on the bus and all of a sudden the older boys start calling me fat and ugly. And when you're 5, it has a significant impact because you're really not equipped with how to just brush a comment like that off. And I really took it personally, and I took that identity on for the next 20 years of my life. And I thought, well, if strangers are saying it, it must be true. And so I became very insecure in my body, and I really just did not like myself. And that all started at 5. Now, the next thing was I had a very emotional relationship with food growing up. Food tasted good. It was a friend. It was always available in whatever I wanted. And so for me, it was just this like soother that I didn't know that I had from a young age. And I think part of it was growing up. Before I was born, my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I think she used food as a way to cope with dealing with that diagnosis, because obviously it is a very harsh disease to deal with and you slowly lose control of everything. And so one of her ways to compensate when she'd have some of her symptoms really flare up, I think, was with food. I think she felt a lot of guilt around the fact that there were certain things we weren't able to do together because of, the symptoms that would come up for her. And so we revolved a lot of our interactions around food. And obviously there's always a lot of junk food and sugar and fast food and baked goods and whatever we wanted to eat. And obviously after I healed my food addiction and binge eating, I really started to observe how she was struggling with food addiction and binge eating, but didn't know it and or did not want to address it. And so then we get into the tweens, I start reading teen magazines, Teen People, Cosmopolitan, all these magazines, and all the images are like women with flat stomachs and they all look so beautiful. And of course you start comparing yourself, thinking there's something wrong with you because you don't look like the images that you see. Of course, what you're not told is that everything is photoshopped and edited and made to look perfect, and no one actually looks like that. And since there's no disclaimers, and when you're young, you're more like naive, right? You don't know. You really take that on and you get programmed by every image you see. It programs your subconscious mind to see you and your own body as distorted, and that there's something wrong with you and you're not good enough and you're not worthy, when really the problem is the media and Hollywood with being allowed to push all of this false imagery and not have disclaimers and warning labels on the images and videos as well, because they do the editing with videos too in Photoshop. So I really got a very distorted image of my body, like many women growing up in men, which is like, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to receive love or have success or anything I want unless I am thin and look a certain way. And so I started dieting in my early tweens and teens, South Beach diet, like just eating vegetables, all kinds of different punishments that I got into. And obviously none of it worked. And I always kind of like fought with my weight a little bit, just always felt like I was a bit on the heavier side and was very critical of myself. And it was when I hit 21, when I had my first memorable binge where I actually fell deep into this behavior. And so I'd gone through a breakup. I could barely eat. I lost weight really fast. I started going to the gym 2 hours a day, Don't suggest any of that. But I lost weight really fast, got to my quote unquote goal weight, but nothing was fixed. Like I had this voice in my mind that had tried to convince me, oh yeah, once you lose weight, then you'll be happy and everything will be perfect and it will fix everything. Weight loss does not fix anything when it comes to like your external world. Like you've got to do the inner mindset work. And of course, yes, we feel better when we're at our natural set point, but weight loss will not fix your self-worth issues. Weight loss will not fix whether you're a people pleaser or not. It will not heal your relationship with food. That is the inner work that we have to be willing to do. And so after reaching my goal weight and realizing I became more critical of myself, my cycle disappeared. I was very like arrogant and egotistical about my body. And again, I was not eating anywhere near enough. So it wasn't attainable and it wasn't healthy by any means. And so I went to a party. This is my first memorable binge. I went to a party and I took an ice cream cake and a salad. And I'm like, I'm only going to eat the salad because diet mentality. How many of you can relate to that? And so I was eating my salad and watching everyone else have ice cream cake and all these other things. And I was just like, oh, that would be so nice to just have some of that and not feel like I have to always be so rigid on this diet. And so I had a piece of the ice cream cake and it's just like this switch flipped in my mind and it was like, oh, I want another piece and I'm going to have a burger and I'm going to have chips and I literally took the chocolate bar that was on the counter that we're going to make s'mores with later. And I took it, went into the bathroom, ate the whole thing. And then I felt so embarrassed because everyone was looking for the chocolate. And they're like, where did it go? And I'm like, oh my God, I just stole it essentially and ate it in the bathroom. And then I left, and on the way home, because now I was triggered into that all or nothing mentality of like, F it, I already messed up. So I'm going to just go get more and try again tomorrow to be better. And so I went and got like fast food and more ice cream cake and just like binged until I was so full. I felt so ill and so bloated and so uncomfortable. And then of course the next day was all about, oh my God, I'm in panic. I got on the scale, it's up a bunch. Obviously I didn't gain weight. It's like the retention and the overconsumption of food. We don't realize that there's a huge difference between actual weight gain and retention. And if you're like constipated and you're barely moving your bowels, the scale's gonna be up a lot more. But we get so hard on ourselves about weight. So there's so many things as far as weight loss blocks to look at, which I'll talk about in other videos. And that I talk about in the podcast. So the link is below if you want to go subscribe and listen to it. But it was like this panic of like, now I've got to fix it. So my punishments, because this becomes punishment when you binge or overeat or emotionally eat, and then the next day you're like, I'm skipping breakfast, I'm barely eating, I'm only eating salads today, I'm going to go to the gym for 3 hours and like burn off as many calories as I can. Like, the diet, the restriction, and the exercise now all become a punishment. Working out when you're in that mentality is not supportive for your health. It is, I'm doing this because I overate, so now I need to punish myself for it. And so that became my cycle. It was either I'm losing control with food and I'm going and eating like 6 cupcakes and a sub and like going to the organic store to try and justify why it's a healthier choice if I binge, if I go there, even though it's not. When you're eating the volume that I was, like a cookie, a baked good, a muffin, a protein bar, like a salad, a pasta salad, a sandwich, a bag of chips, ice cream, like yogurt covered pretzels, nuts, chocolate. Like I was binge eating, a good $70 to $80 worth of food 5 to 6 nights a week. And that's why I say like I spent over $50,000 in 5 years on binge food and quick fixes, because I was spending money I didn't have most nights of the week doing this. And I always felt so ashamed going through the checkout because like I was just here last night buying the exact same things. Just like, I hope they don't recognize me. Like there's just so much shame and embarrassment. I really get it. But try not to feel that, because it's not your fault and you're not alone. And I'm going to be doing a whole series on emotional and binge eating and breaking down why we struggle with these habits, why they're so invasive and intensive, and why it can feel so hard to get over it. But help is available. I've helped thousands of women heal this and gain what I call food and body freedom. And if I can do it, you can do it too. So rest assured, and reach out for support if you want to go on the journey together. So this cycle of binging and losing control, and then eating until I'm so full I'm sick, and then restricting and over exercising went on for a couple of years. And after I had that first binge, I gained about 70 to 80 pounds in 4 months. Now is the heaviest I'd ever been. And I just felt so insecure and so ashamed. I stopped seeing my friends. I didn't go out often. It was just like go to my crappy retail job. My bank account was always in the red. Like nothing was going my way. It was not a good time in my life. I was just isolating at home, and food became what I revolved my world around because I got excited for my binges and essentially chasing the dopamine high, the numbing, the checking out from feeling emotions. Or I was, trying to wish I was the lower weight again, even though I knew that it didn't fix anything. And so that vicious cycle really continued on for about 1.5 to 2 years before I started to become aware that I am binge eating. I have a food addiction. I'm emotionally eating. I also went through about 6 months where I was binging and purging when I started to gain a bit of weight. I thought that purging would prevent me from gaining weight, but it's so destructive and it was just hurting my body more. And I was really concerned that if I kept in that behavior, that I would end up with cardiac issues and all kinds of issues. I have helped many women overcome the binge purge cycle as well. It doesn't matter what phase you're in, whether you're emotionally eating, just overeating a bit, full-blown binge eating, binge purge cycle, or food addiction. Get support to heal this. You can break free and fully heal this. It's just finding the right support, finding someone you feel safe talking to, and someone who really understands and knows and has been through it and can really give you the tools, support, and guidance to help you come full circle and heal these behaviors. It's fully possible. It's not something we have to struggle with for the rest of our lives at all. So I think it's so important that we understand that when we binge and purge, the purge is to try and go, oh, well, I binge, so now I'm just going to not deal with that and I'm going to get rid of it, and then I won't have to deal with the repercussions. But this binge and purge is so destructive to so many different things. And so healing that is very important. And what we realize is we have to take ownership and responsibility for our feelings, our emotions, our circumstances. And if we're unhappy with something, it's our responsibility to deal with it and start working through it. And I know that's the harder part because we think, I just want to lose weight. I just want to be thin. I just want to look a certain way. But the healing is so much deeper than that. And if you keep in this external, superficial band-aid fixes, you will not gain the freedom because none of that's going to help you heal this. And trust me, I learned the hard way because when I was in my cycles of binge eating and restriction, I tried every diet. I tried every eating style. I went vegan. I went vegetarian. I went raw. I went paleo, I cut out fruit, all these different things. And obviously none of it worked because it wasn't about finding the right diet. And healing any kind of emotional relationship with food is not finding the right diet. It's not about that. It is about the inner work. And so I'm going to talk about that right away and the things that I did. And then of course I'm going to make separate videos that are just one focus so you can really better understand what I talk about. And if you want to learn more about that sooner, link below to subscribe to the No Sugarcoating podcast. Go take a listen. You'll love it, honestly. So the low point moment. So I don't wish for anyone to have low point moments, but I needed my low point moment to happen because it's what triggered me to get on the journey to start to address and deal with what was going on with my relationship with food. So essentially what ended up happening is I had a binge, I threw the food in the garbage, and I promised myself that I would never dig through the garbage and eat anything. And I was laying on the couch in tears, so full, so uncomfortable. It literally felt like my insides were just gonna explode. It's so uncomfortable. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Why can't I stop? And what we have to realize is when we're considering making a big change, and we've been in this cycle where I'm using food to cope, I don't like my body, I'm in negative self-talk, I don't know how to cope with stress in healthy ways, I'm afraid to feel my emotions. And when you think of now going on a journey where I'm going to have to figure out why I'm binge eating, why I don't like my body, oh my gosh, I've got so much weight to lose, that in itself just feels overwhelming to deal with. There's just so much I felt I had to deal with. So the overwhelm of not knowing where to start, the fear of the unknown of will it ever work, or will I just fail and be like this forever and my life be cut short because I'm so destructive to myself, right? Who am I going to be if I don't revolve my world around food and weight loss, right? That's my whole identity now. So it's there was this fear of going on the journey because it just felt so uncomfortable and so foreign. And so when we're in a comfort zone of familiarity, even if we're doing things that are self-destructive and are hurting us and our health and well-being, etc., it's familiar, it's comfortable, and the body and the brain are like, oh no, we want to stay in our comfort zone. This is a survival place. Whereas when we get uncomfortable, the brain, specifically the amygdala, recognizes that as a threat. The brain recognizes discomfort as a threat to your life. And so it will try to convince you to revert back and stay in the current behaviors, even if they're not healthy and not serving you. And then we have the inner critic that will back up, oh, just stay where you are. It's not a big deal. I was in such a denial about my relationship with food. I honestly was like, it's not a big deal. I like eating and I like blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, it was a big deal. It was having a significant impact on every area of my life. And I had to really get honest with myself about that, because I really was like, I don't think I'm going to make 30 if I keep doing this to myself. I was very destructive. So whether you're as much as I was or more or less, it doesn't matter. It's just about understanding that you can heal this. So that night I had thrown the food away, was laying on the couch crying, just so upset, afraid, not knowing what or how I was going to deal with any of this. And then when my food settled, I was like, well, all or nothing mentality. If this is the last time I'm going to do this, I'm going to just finish the cookies. And so I went into my apartment kitchen, pulled out my little blue garbage can, pulled the cookies out, ate them out of the garbage can, sat on the floor in just absolute embarrassment and shock. Who am I? I just ate out of a garbage can. It really was a huge low point moment for me. And then I threw everything out in the garbage out back, and then went back and dug through and ate it from there. So it was like, this is a serious problem. I need to deal with this. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I need to start figuring it out. So it's like that discomfort crushed the fear of the unknown, because my suffering became so much bigger in that moment than my fear of trying to change or wanting to change. And I was like, I don't know how or what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure this out. I knew nothing about health. I knew nothing. I was in a mentality of like, you either have good luck genes or bad luck genes, and like food is food and nothing, like it doesn't impact your health or anything. Like I knew nothing. So I was literally starting such a novice with all of this. And so one of the first things I started learning about was refined sugar, and the fact that it's 10 times more addictive than cocaine. And that was such a relief to be like, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. Like some of these ingredients are actually designed to be addictive. And when I started to learn about monosodium glutamate and aspartame and gluten in wheat and casein in dairy, and that they can give you a drug-like high, I was just like, wow, food has been designed to make people addicted to it and lose control and increase your appetite levels and have cravings. And then you wake up to all the food industry corruption, and like, there's so much there. And then I started learning about my gut, and that I had unhealthy gut bugs, and that they make you crave sugar. And then I started, changing the way that I was eating, and some days would feel so much better, but then I was still getting triggered to binge. So that's when I realized this is so much more than just about the food. And I had to be honest with myself and go, I don't have healthy ways to cope with stress. I suck at coping with stress. I'm afraid to feel my emotions, okay? I don't like my body. I'm very critical. I'm obsessed with the number on the scale. My worth is tied to the number on the scale, and I don't feel good enough. And I also didn't know what my triggers were. And so what I realized is, I need to deal with these things. These are the things that are the roots. When we don't feel good enough, we have this void, this lack of self-love that we're trying to fill with food, and we're chasing our worth by people pleasing, or the number on the scale, or how much money you have in your bank account. And none of that defines your worth. Worth is an inside game. And so what I first started with was starting to understand what was triggering me to binge and emotionally eat, because I'm like, how am I supposed to catch my triggers if I don't know what's triggering me? So I started writing a list, reflecting back on previous triggers. And then if I gave into binge and emotional eating triggers, I would then afterward reflect on what triggered me, and started building awareness and understanding what was triggering me. And then I put that list up in every room of my apartment. Because I was going to the store and I would forget I had this list or forget to check in. So putting it up visually really helped to remind me, okay, before I go binge again, let me see if I can figure out what's triggering me and take some steps to deal with it. I started a self-care practice. I started meditating, getting out in nature, journaling, reading, self-help books. Louise L. Hay, You Can Heal Your Life, one of the best books ever. And I started reading that when I was on my healing journey. I started to catch negative self-talk and shift it to positive. I started to feel my emotions. And let me tell you, it was terrifying in the beginning, because I literally thought the world was going to end if I felt anything. And once I started feeling and seeing nothing bad was happening when I felt, and started learning healthier ways to cope, I started catching my binges. I remember the first time I caught a binge, I was in the parking lot getting ready to go in and buy all my binge food. And I sat there and I'm like, Amber, like, you don't have to do this. You know how you're going to feel afterward. It's not worth it at all. And I was just like, you know what? It doesn't feel right. I'm going to go home. And it was such a confidence booster to catch a binge and not give into it. And obviously I had my ups and downs, and I would give into them sometimes and not. But I gained massive traction in overcoming binge and emotional eating by addressing the things that I just talked about, and working on building self-love and worth, and working on the positive self-talk, and forgiving myself for what I had put myself through, and learning what my triggers meant, because your triggers are teachers, and understanding why I got into the behaviors in the first place. And I learned so much about health and well-being and mental health, emotional health, physical health, that I was a sensitive empath and I'm sensitive to energy. And sometimes that can be overwhelming. So I had to learn how to deal with all of these different things, and I'll break this stuff down in other videos just so I don't make it too long. But it was such an empowering time for me because I healed. And then I thought, well, if I was struggling with this to the level that I was, how many other women are struggling? And it's 90% of the female population in North America, by the way. And I just felt so inspired. I'm like, I think I actually just went through all this because I'm meant to help women heal this. And then I, did some natural nutrition school and started my business. And here we are 12 years later with thousands of women helped to fully gain freedom from these behaviors. So it was at the time my biggest struggle that turned into my biggest blessing. And that's usually what ends up happening, is our biggest struggles can turn into our biggest blessings. And that's like the short of the story. You want the longer version, there's episodes in the podcast where I go in depth into it. But my life has completely changed for the better because of healing my relationship with food. I have a beautiful full-time business that is my full-time livelihood, and I can financially support myself. I met the love of my life because I healed and learned how to love and respect myself, and then I attracted him. I'm abundant. I have healed my relationship with money. My bank account isn't in the red, right? Like my weight is at a very manageable, natural set point. I don't pay attention to it, but I just know by the way I feel, that's what I focus on. I don't fight with the scale anymore. I feel good enough. I've healed people pleasing. I have healthy relationships, and the community of amazing people that I've met through my business is amazing. Starting and growing a podcast, over 2 million downloads, and we're listened to in over 88 countries. Being on over 500 different podcasts, teaching countless workshops, helping so many of you heal. And it's just my biggest blessing, and I'm so grateful. And now I get to be here recording this video, and hopefully it uploads this time, because when I tried last week, it didn't want to upload. So I was like, okay, I'm going to re-record. So you're not alone. I wanted to share this to just inspire you and let you know you're not alone. You don't have to keep struggling. So the links are below for the podcast, for the free 90-minute emotional eating masterclass replay. And then if you are wanting to consider a serious commitment and investment in yourself on this healing journey, you can book a consultation. The link is below. So I want to open up the dialogue. Leave a comment. Is this resonating for you? Have you, or are you going through this? You're not alone. I really want to get these conversations going and not feel like you have to just be in silence like it's your secret. Open up, reach out for support. Make sure you subscribe, and if you like this content, hit the like button to let me know so that I can make more of it. And stay tuned, because I post videos on Wednesdays, and I plan to get back into a regular cadence now that I am, getting back into some YouTube stuff. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time.